Hey guys, Tom Barclay here outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium after Tottenham's 2-2 draw with Roma, which I thought overall was a pretty fair result, as frustrating as it must be for Tottenham fans when Mats Hummels scored right at the end in injury time to level it for Claudio Ranieri's side. Plenty of chances, another sort of topsy-turvy game in a thrilling but also equally frustrating from Spurs fans' point of view season. So let's get into it. I mean, I just want to start off by just breaking down the match action. So, first of all, this was Ranieri's return to England. He's a 73-year-old, retired from football management, but was brought back into it for another go at Roma for his third stint at management of his boyhood club. He was born in Rome. He played for them, managed them now 3 times, having come very, very close back in 2009 to actually winning Serie A. They haven't actually won the title there since 2001 under Fabio Capello, but Ranieri, despite maybe in this country, after how it went with Fulham and Watford in recent years, so he's kind of this sort of mystique around Ranieri after Leicester has kind of waned away here. He's still treated like a top coach in Italy, and a gentleman by everyone, of course. And it's funny, there was times during this match where I was kind of wondering how to write my match report, and part of it was I almost had this slightly tortured intro at one point about how Ranieri was the man that sort of denied Spurs their best chance of winning a trophy in this last 16 years during that title, amazing title win for Leicester, which was quite a weird way of explaining one of the most amazing feats in Premier League history. But that's kind of how it's felt in this part of North London, because Spurs really felt like that was their chance, which they blew. But obviously in the end that wasn't used and probably wasn't the best anyway. It kind of got changed a couple of times. One point I had Fraser Forster as my intro, and in the end it was Mats Hummels. But yeah, from the start of the game, so this is obviously Ranieri's second game in charge. His first one was against Antonio Conte's Napoli, which they lost. But you could tell this was a Roma side that were quite quickly trying to adapt to his methods after a chaotic season so far. This is their third manager already this season. But they had the worst possible start, Tottenham the best possible start, when they won a penalty inside 3 minutes when Hummels, who was making his first start for Roma and his first European start since the Champions League final, tripped Pape Sarr, and weirdly the referee didn't give it, even though it looked an absolute stonewaller at first. But VAR told him to go and check his monitor, and he promptly changed his mind and gave the penalty. To be fair to the referee, he did give a good advantage in the build-up to the goal from a foul on Son, which eventually led to this penalty. So, not the best decision at first, but obviously maybe some good with the bad there from the Swedish ref. Son stuck the penalty away, took it, put it past sent the keeper the wrong way. Pretty solid finish. And from there, you were sort of wondering, were Spurs going to go on to a big win? But it didn't turn out to be that way. Roma started to come out into it. Paulo Dybala, in particular, a one-time Spurs target, was really, really impressive. I thought really creative, really got on the ball, and it was from his free kick that Evan Ndika, who I think may have been linked to Spurs before, headed home a great header to make it 1-1. Not that long after Son's opener, to be honest. And Fraser Forster, who we'll come on to, couldn't really done much about that particular one. It was went in off the bar. It was a great header, but another goal conceded from a set piece. I mean, obviously that is a sort of theme throughout Postecoglou's time, but it actually hasn't been that many this season. But no doubt, as soon as that happens, it feels like something that we all and all Spurs fans start thinking about, the fact that they conceded another goal from set piece. But anyway, and within about a minute, they thought they'd gone 2-1 up, Roma, by a brilliant volley from El Shaarawy, which was given the narrowest offside. So Spurs very lucky there. First of 3 goals that were ruled out for offside for Roma. So it sort of underlines how many chances they sort of created tonight, and why I think, to be honest, a draw was probably a fair result. But then after that, Spurs went back ahead and threw a fantastic goal. Every part of this goal I absolutely loved. So first of all, Pape Sarr, who's just having a really good season for my money, gets his head up, sees the space down the line, plays a wonderfully weighted sort of long ball really into that space, allowing Kulusevski to run into it. Who's on top of his game completely at the moment, picks it up and fires the ball across, and there's Brennan Johnson, first time, brilliantly fires it into the bottom corner for his 9th goal in 19 games for Spurs this season. 10 goals in all competitions, I guess, from Wales as well. I think it's 10. I think he's only got 1 for Wales, but anyway, 9 for Spurs. and just really supremely confident finish, excellent finish from his point of view. And then it really should have been 3-1 and maybe a game sort of killer at that point. Soon after that, Kulusevski hits the post with a clever strike, comes back to Son, who really has to put it away, but blazes over, and you could tell he had his head in his hands after that, as did Postecoglou. The Son had his head in his hands for quite some time after that, knowing what a big chance that was. And they went in at 2-1 at half-time. And to be fair to Ranieri, whatever he said at half-time, he actually took Dybala off, I presume through injury. I'm not sure, I haven't seen quotes after the game from his point of view. And he thought, why would you do that unless he's injured? But they had a really good start to the second half. They had a couple of goals ruled out for narrow offsides. First one less so, but the second one definitely super narrow offside. Unlucky on that front. And then Angelino, the old Man City left back, very close to scoring. A good intervention, to be honest, from Pedro Porro, deflected it onto the crossbar. So Spurs were quite lucky at that point not to have conceded. Porro then hits the bar from a free kick. Solanke then hits the bar from a header. And at that point you're thinking Spurs are probably going to just about shade this. They're going to get through with 3 sort of crucial points. And then even more so when right at the end of the game, Fraser Forster, who's obviously playing, he probably would have played anyway because he's played the last couple of Europa League games, but he's now obviously the main man with Guglielmo injured. He pulls off 2 really good saves towards the end of the match, and that was when I was sort of starting to write my match report from his perspective, or him as the intro, because he was sort of suddenly passing his sort of first test in the Vicario injured sort of era, where I think, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs were sort of seeing how this is going, and then if he does really well over the next month or so, then that will maybe have an effect on what they do in January, if they do look for a goalkeeper or not. And he made a really good save at first from Dovbyk, if I've pronounced him right. He's the one who was offside for a couple of times for those goals that were disallowed at the start of the second half, after a terrible header backwards from Porro, who then apologised. Good save from him, and then a really good save from him, sort of classic Forster, to be honest, from a shot-stopping point of view, to deny Mancini. And you really thought at that point that Spurs were having the sort of luck, and they were just doing just about enough to get 3 points. But there's Hummels, he pops up, great ball from Angelino in the 91st minute, and he sticks it away 2-2, and it's a bit of a heartbreaker from Spurs' point of view, but overall probably quite fair, I'd say, overall, as frustrating as it is. 3 points would have put them on to 12, and at that point you're thinking, Elfsborg at home, I know you can't take anything for guaranteed with this Tottenham side this season, but you would have thought that would be 15, and they were pretty much guaranteed a spot in the automatic section to the knockouts, which mean they wouldn't have to be playing any games in February, no extra games in February, which would be good from their point of view. But now they've actually dropped down to 9th, I believe, after tonight's results, so they're just outside the top 8, with Rangers just behind them, who they obviously go to in a couple of weeks' time. So suddenly still a lot of work to do. Frustrating night from Spurs' point of view, from a result point of view, but I don't think they can really argue too much from the way the game was played, that Roma probably deserved a point. And that was pretty much, the frustration element was pretty much what Ange said afterwards. He basically talked about how frustrating it was. He talked about how the squad was pretty thin, has been, when he was asked about some of the subs he made in the second half. We know about the injuries they've experienced at the moment. But he was also asked at the end, the difference between the press conference, where he was in quite relaxed mood, to be fair. He can be quite spiky sometimes after bad results or frustrating results, but not so much today. And he was asked about the difference between winning and entertaining off the back of this topsy-turvy season, and the fact that he plays very exciting football, particularly for the neutral like me, but one that can frustrate fans when it doesn't go well. And he basically said, look, he says he wants to entertain. That is something that he's never going to deviate from. He says, when you turn on the TV and watch us play, or tune in to watch us play, I want them to be entertaining. So that's something that Spurs fans just have to try to enjoy, try to embrace. But I know on nights like this, when they've conceded last minute, it's probably harder to swallow. But Roma, as bad a season as they've had this year, they do have some good players. And I think it was an opportunity missed, but it's not like an Ipswich at home. for my money. It's not like a Crystal Palace away, and most importantly, they're still in a decent position, but it feels like they're going to give themselves a bit more work to do, particularly when it goes, having to go up to Glasgow. Rangers are not flying in the league, and Tottenham should be very much expecting to win that game, but it's going to be a tough atmosphere, particularly with the Postecoglou Celtic sort of subplot of that, Celtic versus Rangers. So a lot more work to do off the back of this performance and this result from Spurs' point of view, which had some good moments but was ultimately frustrating.